Christopher Imbsen é o representante da ONU e do Ano Internacional do Turismo Sustentável. Vem-nos dar o enquadramento sobre a importância do turismo no desenvolvimento sustentável na sociedade global. Christopher Imbsen, da Organização Mundial do Turismo. O vosso aplauso. Sorry about my mistake.
That's absolutely fine. Luigi is a good man. I'd like to be him. I believe there's a video, right? Oh. Okay. Bom dia. Could those of you who have not seen that video before, please raise your hands? Oh, I think I may have saved the day. There's only 3 weeks left of the year, but you have all seen it now, so we are fine. The world is in order. Good. I hope you enjoyed it. After that inspiring video, I'm afraid we're going to come crashing back down to earth with me, but I will do my best. Your Excellency, President of the Regional Government of the Azores, thank you so much for the inspiring words. Thank you so much for the welcome here. And I have to say that your presence here is really testament to the importance that your government is assigning to sustainable tourism for development. So it's really a pleasure to have you here. Honorable Regional Secretary for Energy, Environment and Tourism, I haven't met you in person yet, but I have met your advisor. I've met the Director General, and the conversations I had with them really do fill me with, well, I'm sure that you're on the right track. We had very good conversations. Honorable Mayor of Lagoa, thank you again for a wonderful evening and welcome. Distinguished officials, ladies and gentlemen, friends, on behalf of the World Tourism Organization, it really is an honor and a privilege for me to be with you all here today in the beautiful Azores. I have to admit that when I heard just a couple of weeks ago that I would be joining you here today, my first thought was, Christmas has come early for me this year. So I actually flew over from Madrid, and it's a chaos of people in the streets, maybe Christmas shopping, cars, pollution, endless sun. There's just no rain, there's no wind. So yesterday was perfect medicine, I have to say as well. So I really want to thank the organizers for not just putting together a wonderful event, but also for having been my personal Santa for this year. I'm really, really happy to be here. And I just also wanted to say that this, for me, best conference idea of 2017 goes to you guys. Along with this and all the other initiatives you said, I've been thinking about how to reduce plastic at our events for a long time. And, this was it. I'll try to bring back this inspiration to UNWTO. We're a slow bureaucratic organization. We'll see how much we can move things along, but I'll do my best. So, I've been invited here today to talk about the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development and what UNWTO has tried to achieve with the year. And I will do this with great pleasure, but first I'd like to just give a little bit of background on UNWTO and also some global tourism trends, just to give some context. So UNWTO is a UN specialized agency responsible for the promotion of sustainable, responsible, and universally accessible tourism. But we promote tourism not for the sake of tourism itself. We promote it as a tool for sustainable socioeconomic development and environmental conservation. We have 158 member states. 42 of them are in the European region, which I represent. And I used to say that our region extended from Lisbon to Vladivostok, but I realize I've been mistaken. It's from the Azores to Vladivostok. It's a large and diverse region and makes for an interesting job. We have over 500 affiliate members representing the private sector, civil society, academia, local tourism authorities, associations, and so on. And I think that, well, this also makes us unique amongst UN agencies, this type of membership, and I think it's also a nice reflection of the tourism sector itself. And essentially, in a nutshell, we offer our members political and technical support along our two main pillars, which are competitiveness and sustainability. So competitiveness is how to make tourism grow, and sustainability is how to manage that growth. So I think a lot of people, when they hear that there's a UN agency for tourism, they probably raise their eyebrows, scratch their heads, and think, that's a bit weird. I mean, isn't the UN more normally associated with refugees, health, security, labor, and so on? You don't normally think about holidays. And I think that this is a very legitimate question, but I think that it also has a very legitimate answer, which leads me nicely into the next part of my presentation. And that is quite simply that we work in an astounding sector. Probably all of you know that in 2016, there were over 1.2 billion international tourist arrivals in the world. That's 1 out of 6 people making an international trip every year. And if you add to this the estimated between 5 and 10 billion, perhaps, domestic tourists, well, the mind begins to boggle at the type of impact that this mass movement of people must be having on our planet and on our people. Tourism accounts for 1/10 of the world economy, 1/10 of all jobs, 1/3 of all the world's export of services. But a number that I find particularly impressive is that in 2016, tourism, international tourism, generated $1.4 trillion in exports. That's $4 billion every day in exports. And that makes tourism the 3rd largest export sector in the world after fuel and chemicals. And as you can see, it's a whole lot more stable than fuels. So this really is about much more than just holidays. This is a sector that has to be taken very seriously. I could go on and on with graphs and statistics about how great tourism is, but I'm also aware that death by statistics is a very slow and painful death. So I will just finish with one graph here. This is UNWTO's forecast, Tourism Towards 2030, which says that by 2030, there will be 1.8 billion international tourist arrivals in the world, 3/4 billion in Europe. And that's equivalent to 5 million people crossing international borders every day. That's my country, Norway. Every person in Norway making an international trip every day. These are astounding numbers. This is also equivalent to 43 million additional international tourist arrivals every year between 2010 and 2030. So I know they say that tourism is a competitive sector. It is. But this is a growing pie, and we all stand to gain a piece of it. This is 43 million additional opportunities for tourism to lead the way in sustainable socioeconomic development, but it's also 43 million additional reasons to make sure that we manage this growth in a sustainable manner. And all the conversations I've had here with the people in the Azores have convinced me that this is very much an issue that is at the heart of tourism development here, and it's certainly at the heart of the mandate of UNWTO. And the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development, the designation of this year is, of course, a very clear recognition of how important this issue has become. But global recognition of tourism as a tool for development is not something that just happened overnight. It's actually the result of decades of hard work and lobbying by organizations like UNWTO, with Luigi Cabrini here, very much a part of all of that work, and allies, other organizations. And I just want to highlight three milestones, let's say, from the last few years. First, we have Rio +20. We're in the outcome document, the future we want. It was recognized that well-designed and well-managed tourism can contribute to the triple bottom line of sustainable development and trade and job creation. And where a 10-year framework program on sustainable consumption and production patterns, it's a terrible name, a 10 YFP program was adopted in which tourism was identified as one of 6 key sectors for accelerating the shift towards sustainable consumption and production. And UNWTO has been leading that program since 2014. Then in 2015, the global international community adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, where for the first time tourism was included in 3 of them. So this really was a monumental achievement. And finally, we have the designation of 2017 as the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development. The International Year, though, has to be seen in the context of the SDGs. This is our unique opportunity to explore and to demonstrate the links between tourism, and not just the 3 SDGs in which it's mentioned, but all of the SDGs. In other words, this is our opportunity to cement the ties between tourism and the entire global development agenda. The International Year was adopted by the UN General Assembly at its 70th session, and they invited UNWTO to facilitate the coordination and the implementation of the year and to set up a steering committee in order to help us do so, and we've been very, very, very busy ever since. One of the first things we had to do was decide, well, what did we want to achieve with the year? And we decided on 3 objectives. First was generally just raise awareness about the links between tourism and development. But of course, what UNWTO can achieve alone is very limited. We're just the coordinator for the year. This is a UN year. So this is hence the second objective, which is to mobilize all stakeholders in making this sector a catalyst for positive change, because the success of the year depends on the engagement of the global tourism stakeholder community. And finally, to foster changes in policies, business practices, and consumer behavior which open the potential for tourism to contribute to development. We identified 4 lines of action in which all stakeholders can engage in order to achieve these objectives, and they include advocacy and awareness raising, knowledge creation and dissemination, policy making, capacity building, and education. And we also identified 5 key areas, let's say focus areas for the year, which are relevant for both tourism and development. We can call these the economic side of tourism, the socio-economic side of tourism, environment, culture, and building bridges. But of course, it's very important that all of those focus areas tie in with the SDGs. And just to give you an idea, here is the mapping that we've done behind this. We've always had our eye on the SDGs. So I've really jumped through all of this very quickly. But all of this information can be found in our roadmap for the year, which you can download from our website, and which we also shared with all of our contacts at the beginning of the year in order to create engagement and to inspire ideas. And the roadmap also has information on partnership and sponsorship opportunities, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank Turismo de Portugal for having become a very valued gold partner. There you can see them amongst the overall 60 sponsors that we had for the year. So we're very, very grateful for that. Right, as I said, this is a UN year. It's a year that is meant for everyone to celebrate. But of course, UNWTO has had a slightly special role. And so I will just use my remaining minutes here to give a brief overview over some of the initiatives that we have set in action, in motion, let's say, over the course of this year. So, one of the first things we did, as everyone does, is set up a website. It's an interactive website that invites people to share solutions, share stories, share knowledge, and also encourages people to upload information on their own activities carried out within the framework of the year. And this is information that we can then further communicate and which we also use for our own reporting purposes. And the website also gives access to all our promotional materials for the year, such as the campaign video, which you saw earlier, and the logo. And you're all very welcome to browse this website and use all the materials that you would like to use. We want you to disseminate and communicate this further. As far as the campaign goes, it's called Travel, Enjoy, Respect. It's been a new experience for us in the sense that it is consumer-oriented, whereas most of the work we do as UNWTO is institutional. We've also worked together with the World Committee on Tourism Ethics to develop the tips for a responsible traveler, and they are based on our Global Code of Ethics for Tourism. And here you can see some of the tips. Honor your hosts and our common heritage, protect our planet, support the local economy, be an informed traveler, and be a respectful traveler. We put a lot of stock in this word, respect. Now, as for ethics, UNWTO's General Assembly, at its last meeting in Chengdu in China in September, approved our first, and I believe the world's first, international convention on tourism, the Framework Convention on Tourism Ethics. And this essentially converts our Global Code of Ethics for tourism into a legally binding document, and thereby provides, let's say, a useful legal framework for ensuring a sustainable development of tourism. So this was quite a milestone. Content, we're working, of course, on a lot of content. We have two primary initiatives. One is the flagship report on sustainable tourism for development, which aims to give an honest assessment of the role of tourism in the 5 key areas I mentioned earlier. Because if we want to be taken seriously, I think we also have to be very honest about what we are, what we can achieve, what our limitations are, and what we need to improve. And this was initially released as a report for global consultations earlier in April, and this feedback has now been taken on board, as well as a lot of case studies, and the final report will be launched at our closing ceremony on the 19th of December. So please do download that and read it when it comes out. We're also working with Switzerland on Journey to 2030, Tourism and the Sustainable Development Goals. It's more of a legacy project, and this aims to see how tourism can contribute to each of the Sustainable Development Goals and what each stakeholder can do in this regard. The resulting product will be an online and dynamic platform which is open to co-creation with the global tourism sector. Measurement is absolutely key. I think that we all use the word sustainability quite easily. We bandy it about. But if you can't measure it, you can't prove that it's really sustainable. So we really have to get our act together as a sector in this regard. And we're working on 2 initiatives. The United Nations have asked that the Sustainable Development Goals be statistically based. But the SDGs require integrated policies, and integrated policies require integrated data. So for this reason, UNWTO is working together with the UN Statistical Division, the Statistics Division, on a project called Measuring Sustainable Tourism, which is essentially about harmonizing our tourism satellite accounts, which measure the economic dimensions of tourism, with the system of economic and environmental accounting. So you can call them green tourism satellite accounts in a sense. We're working on many areas at the same time. One of them is pilot projects. And here you can just see some of the results of a Dutch pilot project, which show the value added of tourism up there in comparison to its employment, but also to its ecological footprint. So this really helps us get a more holistic idea of the impacts of tourism. At the same time, we've been using the year to expand our international network of sustainable tourism observatories. These measure the sustainability of tourism at a destination level based on destination-specific needs. And what I think is particularly exciting about this is that they enable the use of both traditional statistical data sources, but also non-traditional data, such as big data. We're talking about mobile phone signals, credit card transactions, semantic analysis of user-generated content, geo-reference data, the list goes on. But I think one of the key advantages of being part of this network is the regular meetings that are held, where you can learn from other destinations how they are measuring tourism in their destinations, and that's particularly important in this field because it's evolving very, very rapidly. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Alentejo region for being the latest addition to our network. Now, an incredibly important moment took place this year when UNWTO was included in the OECD Development Assistance Committee's list of official development assistance eligible international organizations. Okay, that's a long sentence, but basically it means that UNWTO is now officially recognized as a development agency. That means that all financial contributions to UNWTO, including membership fees, can be considered, can be reported as official development assistance, and a lot of countries have ODA reporting requirements. And so we're very excited about this because it opens up the opportunity to increase tourism flows, tourism ODA flows, which at the moment account for only 0.14% of all ODA, whereas tourism accounts for 1/10 of the world economy, 1/3 of all exports, and so on. So it'd be nice to try to reduce this gap a little bit. So this is very much a powerful recognition of the role of tourism in sustainable development. We have nominated 12 special ambassadors for the year who have a responsibility to spread some of the key messages. Amongst them, we have the presidents of Colombia. I think some of you may have seen this already, of Colombia, Costa Rica, Liberia, Malta, Samoa. We have some prominent public officials and personalities and private sector people. And our latest addition is Hello Kitty. So, but probably she has a wider outreach than all of the rest of them put together. So each one has, of course, their special target audience. And these special ambassadors will become ambassadors for tourism and the SDGs once this year is over. All right, we've had lots of official events. We've had 15 of them, but rather than go through them, I'll suggest that you go through our website and look at what's been going on. I think that probably I have taken enough of your time at the moment, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for your attention and to say, please celebrate this year in whatever way you can. There are still 3 weeks left, and do remember that this year is simply a springboard to an increased global commitment to making tourism a tool for a better future for all of us. Thank you.